Yes.
All day.
Okay.
At your leisure.
Okay. Good afternoon, all, and welcome to the Commissioners' meeting of Wednesday, September 15th, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our meeting, we'll take a few minutes for a moment of silence to remember all of those who have served abroad and those who continue to serve for our country. Thank you. I want to welcome Don Liptak today. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
What? Oh, public comment. Sorry about that. Public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak on a public comment? No? Okay. Now, we want to welcome Don Liptak.
Well, thank you very much. I think
if you would just introduce yourself too and your association.
I would like Lee Davis actually to start.
Okay.
If I would.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lee Davis, Chairman of the Conservation District.
Hello.
I've been there for so long now, I think it's home. And Don is with me. We have this piece of paper, or pieces of paper, that deal with our project. And I'd like to call your attention to the fact that we really got started before 2003, but the time we got into the depth of it with the support of the county commissioners at the moment, it goes back to 2003. We felt for a little while, at least I felt for a little while, that we would be one of those plans put on a shelf only to be looked at sometime in the far distant future. Well, it turned out that the far distant future has arrived and that we have now come up with federal funds and the projects which are carefully outlined there to initiate the coastal water restoration plan. It says here we have a 10-year program. I hesitate to suggest that it's funded until December of 11, but at the moment the funds that are available are to be dispensed on or before the 31st of December in 11. It's our hope that with your cooperation and all the other federal and state people that we can get extensions so that we'll be able to complete all the projects so that the 10-year appropriate schedule for them to be there. And I could call your attention just to the, I love bar graphs, don't you all? And
yeah.
So it shows the federal monies being spent and where they're being spent. And so that if you begin to sort of look at this, you realize that we did get $5 million to begin with, and just recently, like a day or two ago, we got another 1.4 million. So we were able to increase the number of projects that we can offer to the towns, and this is being done through Dawn and through the district, so that Dawn's the stem winder for this whole affair, if you will. We now are going to have at least four people, maybe 5, working on these various projects at various levels, which means money for the people. In other words, the district will have employees now. And we've been struggling over the last about 4 or 5 years, essentially with no money except what we have earned on our pre-sales. And so now we feel like we're wealthy. We're not really, but we feel that way. And we're much better off than we were, I must admit, because through these district programs we were able to get some money for the district.
Well, that was a significant accomplishment, getting this grant.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. Yes.
And I recall when the ex-Senator Paul Kirk was here and Representative Delahunt at the APCC. Notifying us that we did, not that we didn't know that the money was coming. So what is the total amount now of the grant?
I'm not sure what the total amount is.
20-something or 30-something million? I
Yeah,
forgot.
well, the original proposal called for $30 million for the work. You know, that's the universe of work. Of course, that's changing all the time with costs and so forth. But what we have in front of us with the Recovery Act funds is the initial $5 million that you just mentioned. And as we just referred to, was it Monday morning, we actually got 1.5. $5 million was squeezed out of the national office, and that simply was a result of our convincing the national office that we had committed to $5 million. They're not going to deal with someone who can't obligate the money, so we had obligated it a couple weeks ago. Barnstable contracts came in. So at that moment, we went right back to our national office where they, what they call, sweep the country for other ARA funds, those that aren't expended. And they did have some more, and they did show reason and a strong case for obligating another 1.5. So right now we're in the process of trying, you know, where those monies are going to stick and where they're going to go. So the towns
So overall, it's the Cape Cod
6.
Water Resources Restoration Project that we're talking about.
yes, it does.
Just so people at home, sometimes if you don't say it in the very beginning, people aren't really too sure what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, back to you, Lee.
The important thing, it seems to me, is that in the original work plan of 03, Don and others were looking at the reports that had come from several parts of the Cape, county commissioners and the county boards and stuff, and they were trying to imaginatively create an opportunity where we could get funding from the federal government to do these projects. So one of the other issues which is not part of this particular project is the shellfish grants, which we've been able to get funds for and support for the shellfishermen here on the Cape. And that began here, and it's the only project in the United States of America that began here and is now being accepted all across the country wherever people try to raise shellfish. So I'm very proud of the fact that the district did it, and I'm very much prouder of the fact that Don, in his creativity, in his creative ways, has been able to create the money source. But that's his knowledge and background. That's what it's supposed to be, and he does a wonderful job at looking at the things and then convincing the various hierarchy standards that we need this money, as he just pointed out. When he went back to Washington, they got 1.5 million more, which is, I think, very appropriate and very nice. So I can ramble on, as I would say, for another hour or two, but perhaps I don't ramble on enough. And I'd like to be sure that you have all this information and you can peruse it at your leisure. And we'll certainly, if you have questions, we're certainly being able to get there and give you answers. I do that naively because I just say, ask Dawn, ask Dawn. It's quite simple. I have a very good answer. Ask Dawn.
It's done.
And so thank you very much for the opportunity to present these to you. Thank you very much for your support. Look forward to seeing you on Monday, I believe it is, at this meeting up at, where is it?
Scudder Lane.
Is it
Scudder Lane,
someplace in
Town
Boston?
Landing.
There was a map here.
It's up at Scudder Lane, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know
We're
where
going to
Scudder Lane is.
have a bus that goes. We're going to use St. Mary's for a parking space and have a bus transport back and forth, because we felt that if you put 500,000 cars in Scudder Lane, you might have to walk on cars to get there.
That's very true.
So
So what time would your bus leave here, do you think?
I just think
9:30?
it's going to be back and forth.
We're going to,
Oh, back and forth?
we'll have the bus
Is
available.
it St. Mary's or St. David's?
St. Mary's up the street here?
That's
Yeah, St. Mary's.
Mary's,
Mary's.
yeah,
St.
right across
Mary's.
from the,
Parish.
Yeah,
Right
to the
across from the
APCC.
library.
Oh,
I'm
something
thinking
else.
9:30ish we'll have the bus rolling.
9:30.
Yeah.
Mary Pat, you're aware you're on the speaking
Yeah,
agenda.
I see that, yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, I said, wow.
Many a cold will feel frozen.
Huh?
You were elected as a representative from the county commissioners.
Absolutely.
I just want to, again, just thank the partnership, the strong partnership with the leaders initially were the county commissioners, your predecessors, and Bill, you've been right through this with Mark's support, and the district, right from day one. And I must add that the Coastal Resource Committee has been one of the most professional and helpful, locally led groups of individuals I've ever worked with. They are just the epitome of efficiency and good information. And they really made this happen. They really called the shots. They delivered the guidance for us as to what we should do locally here. I had an idea, but it was that consensus, that strong consensus of a vote from the Coastal Resource Committee, and I just can't say enough about them, and I continue to work with them. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have some incredibly competent people on these various boards that are really producing important information. And fortunately, when you can focus it, you get results. Even though you're sort of, you have to be persevering, I think the word is.
Yes.
Yes.
Tenacious. All the P's. Persistent, persevering.
Yeah.
All of that.
My boss, Christine Clark, who's on the speaking agenda, is down in Washington today with the congressman, briefing him on Monday. So
Yeah.
we'll be ready.
Good.
So we're hoping that our senators come. They've been invited. I'm not sure what the reply is at this point. But we have about 50 committed to coming so far. So
Okay.
to give you a sense, there'll probably be some more showing up.
Yes, we hope you all can come.
Yes.
You all come.
We'll be there.
We will. May I ask a question? Now I see Jim here, and I know that you and I have had contact about the Red Lily Pond. And I know that, we had a communication back on that this was really the focus in trying to take care of certain projects first.
Right.
Can you just tell me where that is? I mean, I know Jim's here, and Steve, and people had contacted me about that.
That's a valid concern. We've had many requests
Right.
that were above and beyond and around the core original project sites. The sites were picked through a consensus of our partnerships. It wasn't Lee, it wasn't me. It
Right.
had something to do with it. But what we do is when we get to a certain resource area, we defer to the experts, all right? So bear with me. The experts in this case for fish passage are the State Division of Marine Fisheries, in particular Brad Chase and his group, who works in Bedford. And then, of course, the local town typically has a herring warden or shellfish resource person. So when requests come in, I don't make a decision on those. I refer those to our experts. I say, how valid are these? Is this site? Is it worth it? What does it need? How does it rank relative to the other ones? And so we come up with a sort of a scale, sliding scale of the different sites. So when I said earlier about the consensus building of the CRC, that's all part of the process
Right.
of the sites that were chosen. So we have had a few of those, and some of those fell out of contention because they didn't specifically meet the resource needs of our plan. The verbiage in our plan from 2006 is in concrete. We can't change it. That's an act of Congress. We can amend it. And we have had a lot of suggestions for amendments in the future years, and we can do that if we, again, get the CRC and the local partnership to verify and have a case for change or additions.
Right.
So that's the best I can do at this point, if it's not the right
No,
answer.
I appreciate that, and I just think that we have many problems and issues and hotspots around the Cape. So I think that it's more advice and direction. I think that was.
And I'd be
as
glad to
much-
discuss any of
Yes.
this stuff with anyone. I do that.
Right. So,
No
and we
problem.
will once we get through this weekend, and you get through this. I know you've been very busy on this, and I appreciated that contact back. So, and this is all positive steps moving forward.
It's pretty exciting.
So,
I appreciated you
for that.
No,
No, I just-
I
I'm
appreciated
glad
following up on that, that request we got for information in the town of Barnstable, for that woman that was looking for some support on it.
Woman in Falmouth, it goes on and on. Towns, all the places are inquiring, and that's good, showing concern and interest. I appreciate that. We'll do our best to get our best answers.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to add just an aside. As you are aware, I suspect that the Conservation District was established in 1947. And it was established in those times for the Soil Conservation Service, SCS as we used to call it. And in those times, there's an amusing story, let me repeat it, that says there was a man here who was head of the state, Benny Isger. And Benny, the people in Boston wanted to close conservation districts. So Ben Isger said, I don't care if you close them or not, because if you do close them, I'm leaving, because I'm not supposed to be here. And they said, oh, he said, yeah, he said, you've got to have local committees to work with the National Resource Conservation Service. And that's the philosophy that's going on today. So across the United States of America, there are about 4,000 of these so-called districts. But in Massachusetts, there are 14. And so we're the ones that are, standing head and shoulders in the money.
Right.
And no one knows more than Lee.
Well, that's all that
Since we have
hard work.
2/3 of the coastline of this state, I would hope that we did.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And we're having really, the coastline is where my heart is, because that's around us all the place. It's excuse me, it's that ability to be able to help the quality of life of all the people on the Cape. That's what really, in the philosophical sense. We had a fellow who's gone to his reward, but he used to say, conservation districts are the friends of men. We don't tell you how to do it, we tell you what you cut it. If you want our money, we'll tell you what you've got to do to get it. But we're not telling you, you've got to have our money. It's up to you if you want it. And you can get the rules. And that's what's happening with the towns that are here. I regret to say, I don't make the rules. It's a good thing, because I probably make bad rules anyway. But the only problem is that if the community says, hey, we don't like this rule, we can say, oh, well, we don't care for it much either, maybe. But that's the way it is, and so you have to accept the rules. And so far, most of the communities have been very, very cooperative and understanding, which is very, very important. That the staff people and the regular working folks understand the rules and regulations and work cooperatively with us. So it is a cooperation. It's not, you're going to do it this way. No.
Right.
Well,
Oh, that's the only way to get it done.
The county is to enhance the quality of life for all of the people who live here,
Yeah.
which is consistent with your mission.
Yeah.
And I'm fond of saying we got to protect what we have and make wise choices for what we need. And I think you're also consistent with that. So I really appreciate the work you're doing for all of us.
Yeah.
Don, do you have a
Thank you
website
for
that
the opportunity.
you could refer to in case people want more information?
Yes.
on
Can I email you that?
Yeah,
Off
sure.
the top of my head what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hope to see
Yes,
you Monday.
thanks very
Yes,
much.
yes,
Yes, we'll
we'll
be
be
there
there.
Monday.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, with a few words. Yes.
Good.
Thank you very much
Thanks,
for the
Lee,
opportunity.
for coming,
Lee.
truly.
And thank you
See you
folks
later.
for getting it all
Anytime,
done for
guys.
us.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Bye, thank you.
See, waiting in the wings is Wastewater Avenue.
Yes.
There they are.
And it's 2/3.
Duo, trio,
Quattro.
quattro,
Yes.
whichever. All right, now we're going to talk about
No worries.
the Water Protection Collaborative, and the workshop update,
Okay.
and any other related issues.
You're for job interview?
I went to a funeral.
That's the funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the wake last night. It was so sad.
Just bringing up to date on where we are with the planning of the review. You know, you authorized us to go ahead and develop an independent scientific review of the estuaries model. Been working on that since August. We presented a framework for the workshop to the collaborative board last Thursday, and no formal vote was taken, none was asked for, but general agreement on the direction. We were tasked with calling together the technical advisory committee, which continues to exist for purposes such as these, to work through some of the details, and then depending on the approach you want to use, we either sort of finalize the agenda through the steering committee and bring it back for you to look at. You can authorize us to sort of say we're done. I think that my sense is, my recommendation would be, we should talk through this a little bit, make sure you're comfortable with the general approach. I don't see the general approach changing in any huge way. I don't know that you want to get in the position of sort of approving the details of the agenda and the people involved, because I think that would raise some issues about the independence of the whole thing. But I'm hoping that over the course of the next several weeks we will sort of frame up this, how we want the day to go, and then be in a position to begin to line up participants. Logistical aspect of getting people to participate is going to take some time, but we're still looking to do it as we committed, which is this fall, which I reminded people, fall doesn't actually end until December 20th.
Yeah.
So,
The vernal equinox.
At what time?
That's
right.
That's very good, and it hasn't started yet.
That's right.
The point that I think that when we had agreed from a philosophical point of view of the need and necessity of doing it, that part of what we would do, since I think collectively we're not experts in terms of identifying the things that would be useful from looking at things from a technical point of view, that I would feel comfortable in saying that the steering committee, under the direction of Andrew, with the support of Paul, and also since we have the observation of our representative on the as well as you on this, that I would feel comfortable going forward. To me, the most important thing is that we have evidence that we're taking a step in a direction to give people an opportunity to hear what we've done, to hear the support that we have based upon the comment of the scientific community that we are inviting in to look at this, and the outcome of this seems to be going in a direction that is consistent with what I would call a positive investigation, evaluation based upon what we have done, what we are proposing, and an opinion about the validity of the actions that have been taken so far. I see this as something that speaks very well for us. I have this very great concern that the talk about waiting for the science to be validated is not really useful, because the science has been validated. There is evidence not only at this level, but at those levels of people who have been designated by the Commonwealth and by the federal government to, let's say, to review this. I have heard nothing from them other than words in support of what has gone on so far. And I hope that this would be some evidence that we are taking positive steps to review the matter, put it before the public, and verify the direction that we believe is in the right direction.
Right. Well, the way we structured this, was to try to, I asked Mike Domenica to help frame this. He's been involved in a number of these types of reviews in the past in various forms. And the way we structured this session would be very much along the lines of a value engineering study. So we identify people in various disciplines that are well qualified through education and professional experience to have opinions on these matters. We develop a very detailed information packet in concert with UMass Dartmouth to provide them baseline information they need to understand both the construction of the models and the practical application of them. Because remember that what we set out to do was have this be not an academic exercise about if you had all the time and all the money in the world, what would you do to tweak these models to make them even better? The question we're asking people are they constructed and applied in a way that is good enough to use for management decisions? Are they not, specifically, we're not asking, could you improve them? Would you improve them? It's more of an applied analytical approach. And so we give them the information they need in order to understand the underpinnings of the work, how it's being utilized, how it's being applied, bring them together for a day. Well, bring them together for several days. The first day would be a session where they'd have the opportunity to interact as a panel directly with the UMass folks, as well as other key participants in the process if they need that information. And people have done, they have the opportunity to ask Paul's folks about the land use, how the land use stuff was developed. They could talk to the DEP people potentially about how the information is then taken and converted into a TMDL. We make the technical resources available to them. Spend a day giving them the opportunity, based on the work that they did and the reviews they did, to ask questions. They will also have the opportunity to, in advance of the session, to suggest additional questions that they think are relevant. We would have sent them both information and a series of questions that we would like their input on. They would have the opportunity to come back and say, well, we need a little bit more information here, we need a little more information there, and we think you ought to ask these types of questions.
In reviewing the letter that we got from from a delegation, it seems that the issue of the black box part of it, the model, and the transparency of drilling down through the model is something that was a major concern that they were expressing. If the model can be opened and examined by the participants, that would seem to satisfy the significant question that that the delegation was looking for.
Well,
the model has been opened
yeah,
several times in the past. That it's not publicly available on the internet somewhere for anybody to wallow around in is what the criticism should be. But it has been opened, and we've gone through this extensively with these rainbow spreadsheets on a number of occasions.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to get distracted by the specifics of that or some of the other documents that are circulating around, because I think that the scope of what we set out to do answers the relevant questions of the day, which are, how's the model, is the model appropriately constructed and is being appropriately applied for the management decisions that we're asking communities to make. And the rest of it may be of interest to people for one reason or another, but it's not particularly on point, and it doesn't really help us move forward. So I think that, some people's feelings aside about how we're doing this, it's constructed to answer the meaningful questions that should give people comfort about whether they can or should not proceed with this work. And I don't want to go chasing side issues off down the road, because I think they're a bit of a distraction. So just to get back to how we structure the day, so they'd have a day to grind through this work. They'd have some time where we'd actually take people out in the field, because we're looking for people who are both qualified and impartial. That may well take us outside the region, and so people's familiarity with the specific physical nature of some of the systems we're talking about may not be what we're accustomed to, where we assume everybody we're talking to knows the bays. So we'll probably take people out in the water, show them what we're looking at, give them a working session, the second part of that day, to talk among themselves without the UMass folks present. What do you think? You had a chance to think about this, you had a chance to chew on it. What do you think? Where are the areas that you have additional concerns? Where are the areas you see weakness? How relevant are those weaknesses to the outcome? There can be problems with the model or issues, data quality, precision of the data, that one might want to improve, but that are not particularly important to the outcome. That if you improved it by an order of 2, the accuracy, the model might change, outcome might get 0.5% more precise. I would argue, who cares, right? You're not going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time fixing something that isn't very sensitive to the outcome. Whereas you might have a problem that they identify that has a huge potential impact on the answer that you get. And so that would be an area where you'd want to try and focus these. To have people talk through from a practical nature. You have 15 concerns on your list. What's the priority of them, and how important do you think those 15 concerns are? And to really ask people to sort of focus on, again, things that you would change because it would make the output better versus things that really need to change to make the output valid. And there's a distinction there. And if all people are willing to take from this as an aside is, if there's a problem and the whole thing is then deemed worthless, then we don't need to bother, because it's model and there will be things that people can improve. So if people aren't willing to sort of think about the import of the improvement, then it's a waste of time.
From a manufacturing point of view, when 100% of your product is perfect, then you spend an awful lot of time and energy on your end, on your end part. But usually, a 2% variance is usually is more than acceptable. So if 98% of everything that you make or do falls, falls within the acceptable level, then tweaking the other 2% is very costly and very counterproductive.
Right, but I'm just asking you to remember to be prepared that there will be that 2% because it's predictive modeling. It's not even as easy as having a product that you can actually tangibly hold in your hand and say, does it work? And some people will latch on to that and say, aha, we told you the model's flawed. And that's not a productive answer. And you need to be prepared for that outcome because that's a certainty, okay? But it's not important. It's, if that 2% error is huge in determining the validity, that you go this direction instead of that direction, then that's something we need to look at. If the 2% error still says you'd still be going that way, I would argue that's a very different answer. So then the third and final day, the way we frame this out, bring the UMass folks back in, present to them the collective findings of the group, and then have an opportunity to have a discourse about, well, okay, you think that's a problem, but here's the way we've worked on that through a QA/QC procedure, blah, blah, blah. So that you have the opportunity to have them have some input back into the group. They would then leave, UMass folks would then leave. The remainder of the day, whatever portion of time is spent, would be the group being able to talk among itself again, having had the opportunity to have a discussion in the morning part of the session. All right, what do we all think about what we heard? And begin to form up their recommendations, and then there would be a written report delivered to the client, which is the county commissioners as a sponsor. A couple weeks later, that would provide the findings of the report. This is a process. It's a legitimate process. It's used in a number of different circumstances, similar to this and in other venues in the scientific world. We need to get the right good people to populate it so that they can engage at the right level. But I think structurally Mike's done a real good job in laying this out for us. I think the governing board had a degree of comfort with the approach. We're just going to work through some of the details. And that's where we are. And in terms of the National Academy of Sciences issue, which has caused all manner of agitation for various people.
And the public is now sending in suggestions on people that should populate that too.
That's fine. I think that the commitment was to do a fair and full and impartial, legitimate review of the work. And in doing that, the appropriate due diligence is to go talk to organizations and qualified people throughout the country, wherever they may be, to get their input on how structuring this day and to investigate their interest and ability and value in having them participate. Discussion with NAS is nothing more, nothing less than that, in my mind. And, had we not talked to the NAS, people would have said the process is flawed, you didn't talk to the NAS. Did talk to the NAS, and people are saying that represents some change in policy. It's neither. It was simply doing a thorough, basic level of due diligence and exploration of what needs to go into this that anyone would expect of anybody trying to do a straight-up job, which is what we've done. So I think it's a lot of to do about nothing. We haven't concluded the discussions with the NAS people. We haven't determined whether they're interested in, able to, and willing to participate in some form to this. We'll be having those discussions with them. We'll be having those discussions with other groups that are similarly situated. They tend to be the flavor of the day, but there are other perfectly qualified scientific review bodies out there that may also be incorporated into this, may be more suited, better suited for a variety of reasons to this exploration, and we're in the process of working that whole thing out. So, I don't think much more needs to be said about it. The commitment is what it always has been: full, fair, and impartial review of the work, and fair-minded people should be willing to be able to look at the way this is scoped and be able to look at who's ultimately invited to participate and feel that the work's going to get done on a legitimate basis. Those who have a predetermined outcome, sense in their mind on how this is going to be, will find something to criticize about how it's developed, conceived, and implemented, and I'm not going to worry about it.
If I can just add to that, people have contacted me even just several days ago about that, and about the NAS being involved, and about the letter from the delegation. And I do want to note, in the letter of the delegation, there was no offer of funding or request of how that funding would even come through. So there was a lot of talk about their desire, but no real coming forward with any assistance on that.
Right.
The other piece of it is the discussion about if we just went forward as we first planned, then no matter what we did and who we had there, it would have been under question. And I think that is why we did go to the NAS. I mean, they happen to be in town. Let's see, let's have a discussion about what exactly do you do, what is the process, and how can they help. And I do, I know that you're now going to be talking with them in this process, and if nothing else, Paul, I believe that woman said that they would be happy to look at the pool of people or suggest people, because what they do is just send their proposal out and says who wants to participate, which is pretty much what we were going to do. And I think that we were coming to the consensus that they would be very similar people, if not the same people on the list. The one note of discussion with that particular woman, whose name is escaping me, Rogers, I believe her name was?
Sarah?
Susan Rogers. When we were giving her an overview of the whole problem here on the Cape, and she was very familiar with it from the Chesapeake area, she said, don't people understand that you're trying to save money? You're trying to save everyone money. And she understood that very clearly because of her experience on the Chesapeake. And in all of these reports and discussions, that's never really brought up that particular comment, which I wish had made that article. And but I agree. I think that we're doing what all we can, and I hope that people will participate and put those personal biases aside and maybe question marks and get into it with us, and that's the only way we're going to go forward. So.
What do you need from us right now?
Yeah.
I think, at this point, not much. I think a clear sense, as I said when I started, I don't think it behooves you, frankly, to be knee-deep in the details of the selection of the process. If I have your sense that you're comfortable with us, with this approach, your sense that we're managing this in a way that meets your expectations, and we can just go ahead and set up the day and go ahead and do it, then that's what we'll do. I don't think that it's necessary for us to come back and say, here's the detailed list of people, and have you bless that, because I think that
quite the opposite.
I think
that becomes a county.
I think that puts you.
Right.
I think that puts you in an awkward position.
Right, because
So-
then it's right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Question.
Then somebody says, "Well, why'd you pick so and so?" And then you're in an awkward
Because he was a
position.
relative.
I did want to ask though, Andy, because
Everyone's relative to somebody.
the key to this is who's going to be on the panel,
Right.
in terms of getting kind of the
Right.
broadest level of support. So maybe you can enunciate how that process is going to.
Well, I think we'll
play
work
out.
through the TAC and the steering committee. Mike and I have begun putting together a preliminary list of people based on these due diligence discussions of people who might be qualified. As I said, I think the criteria are that by education or professional experience, they are qualified and well-versed in subject matter. And we've broken the subject matter out into different categories with water quality modeling, there's hydrodynamic modeling, there's land use modeling, there's regulatory and TMDL policy piece, so from the applied side. So we have different categories of people that we'd be looking to populate. Having discussion with NAS and some others, people nationwide, who would you recommend? Who do you think would be good for this? We'll come up with a longer list of people than we would intend to invite, because we're going to be asking people. It's going to end up being a work week of their time, because we're going to have them on site for 3 days. You figure it's going to take them a day to get here and a day to get out. So you're talking about a week's worth of time doing it in what will be relatively short notice for them. So, people are going to fall off the list. So we'll pull together a qualified list of people. We'll run it through the TAC and the steering committee. And I'll get invitations out, and we'll see who's able, and hopefully we'll be able to get a balanced group within each one of those disciplines so that we have more than just one voice. Because I think there's a problem with having just, you say, okay, you're the water quality guy, he's got one particular bent on the issue, and it may not be the gospel truth. So you probably want, two people in the room to be able to sort of bat ideas around and provide different views. So that's what we're looking at. In terms of, your question on what do we need, I'm probably going to need more money. I don't know yet. But, we worked on a sort of initial estimate of, $25,000. That's going to be on the low side.
Right.
Mark and I are doing some work to try and really fine-tune what we've got, because we've got another big financial liability out there on the lawsuit side. And the pot of money I was looking to take this out of was the municipal support piece. I don't want to ravage the budget that's providing technical support to the communities. You rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit. So that's a sort of open question. We could fund the whole thing based on with the money we have. It would push a problem later on into the later part of the fiscal year where it'd probably run out of money sooner than I'd want to on the municipal support side and come back and ask for that. We can have a discussion about which one you want me to come back and ask for.
That'd be part of the discussion.
Yeah, that'd be part of the discussion.
It's part of the strategy.
It's part of the strategy of the whole thing. So, we'll need to supplement somewhere along the line, but we're not there yet. But just in fairness, in a fair answer to your question, when you say, ask an open-ended question on what do you need from us, I'm going to tell you at some point we're going to need some money.
Okay, yeah, and it's a fair answer, but but the big thing is that we want to make sure that we're prudent about this. This is not a cost-plus, approach.
No, we're not talking anywhere along the lines of the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars that people were quoted as saying was what the NAS piece would be. I don't know what the NAS would charge. No one knows. No one knows what it fit into.
The discussion was around, it was not low figures.
No.
When she
between
had,
$400,000 and $700,000.
Right.
But I'm guessing, that's probably based on as much as I based 25 on.
I think it was based upon a WAG.
Because until you have a day,
you might be too low there.
until you have a day, and until you know who you're talking about, where you're bringing them in from,
exactly.
What you're going to do with them, you're speculating.
Right.
I can tell you, you do it in a week, it's going to be cheaper than you do it over the course of a year, which is more along the lines of the type of review that they typically undertake.
I think you need to have a hit. In other words, you have to, let's see, summarize everything, compress it, and come up with the result.
Yeah, so we're working on that question, but money will be an issue, but we're not. This is not a luxury cruise.
With having you guys move forward in the planning, as far as that goes. The other comment I wanted to make is after my spring and summer semester of wastewater learning with this review committee, I've come to the conclusion that one of the biggest problems that everyone's going to face, is discharge sites. I mean, that is a huge issue. You're going to take it out. Where are you going to put it? And that's far more important than the model. To my way of thinking, after listening to all these different consultants and experts and everybody else who shows up at these meetings, it's the biggest issue is discharge sites.
I think people do lose sight of the fact that the MEP was a state-sponsored program. State put in $6 million. The county put in a bunch of money to this program. And it is the biggest potential cost savings tool that we had. Because without the MEP, if we were moving forward with some of the litigation that's coming bearing down on us now, we would be looking at overly conservative estimates of what we need to construct in order to solve the problem. But in every community, once the big numbers start to roll in, first thing they do is question the science. Second thing they do is question the engineering. We've seen this repeatedly. We knew that this was going to happen, but we have to continue to answer these questions. I think the symposium is a good way to do that, because even the letter from the delegation was misinformed in many ways. And so I'm kind of shocked with the delegation, given the state's financial underwriting of this program wasn't more informed about the nature of the MEP program before they wrote that letter. So I think we need to continue to inform people and make sure that everybody's got the facts.
Well, I think that in fairness to the delegation, I think they were responding to what I would call a call from constituents to do something.
I understand, but that call could be followed up with a call to the Cape Cod Commission to ask, hey, what's the deal before I write this letter?
There wasn't a check-in.
We always would have hoped that communication would be the first thing.
But in the problem with just responding without all the information is that you help fuel the expectation and the legitimacy of that.
Right. Certain of those concerns are now somewhat more legitimized by the existence and the repetition
Right.
over those signatures.
Exactly
And it
right.
then makes it, it sort of builds on it. It's a self-feedback
Right.
loop.
And they that was, I don't think that was a responsible.
Well,
It wasn't that helpful.
There's four
No.
reasons why people get upset, and one of the most important one is misinformation, and unrealized expectation, self-deception, thwarted intention. So when we look at these things, I think that we have been very careful not to unnecessarily raise expectations as far as outcomes. I think we've been very clear and very narrow about what we could do, and what we could do are things that we can go back and do again. The
And have some
redundancy
control
piece
over it.
is the part that I think is essential if it's going to have scientific validity.
Well, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Just on the last thing on the National Academy of Sciences piece is that one of the things that I was very interested in the conversation is National Academy of Sciences is doing a review of the Chesapeake Bay scenario now. They're not looking at the science that established the TMDLs, they're looking at the implementation plan.
Right.
And that's really where we're starting to stumble on this thing going forward. And they're looking at a multi-state watershed that's contributing there, and they're doing some really good work down there. And we're going to stay in communication and follow that. I wish we had more time, but I think the events of the day have overtaken us on the implementation piece. So we're going to have to really focus on what we're going to do there.
We don't have a Susquehanna River, and it flows from Pennsylvania through Maryland into the bay.
But the interesting thing in Chesapeake Bay, they have a lot of agricultural land around that. So the initial efforts around there were on fertilizers and these non-point source distributions. They didn't meet a lot of luck on that because they didn't deal with on-site disposal systems. As they've begun to deal with on-site disposal systems, there are some recent technical articles that have come out that suggest that they're having an impact up in some of the rivers that feed the watershed.
The Southwest is rife with all of the particulate matter that has been built up over the years because of the irrigation and the entraining of salts and particulate matter from overuse of fertilizer in order to maintain that three-crop cycle that they have over there. When they begin to look at it, they discovered that they had the same problem with corrosion or erosion as you'd have in an estuary. So we're learning a lot of these things as far as what outcomes, but a lot of it has been stuff that we've imposed in order to get a benefit without looking at consequences that come out of it.
So your plan is to have this sometime before the equinox?
That's the plan.
It's the plan.
Learn
That's plan fall.
Right.
Just like
The
we
next
said,
equinox,
fall.
right.
Just by way of real brief update, I know we want to talk about the litigation, we won't talk about it now in the open session. The municipal support pieces, CLRC and Domenico services have proven to be quite popular and well received. We've been working in Orleans. The commitment, Mike and I, Domenico that went in front of the Orleans Board of Selectmen. I introduced them. We talked about what we might be able to offer. Came up with a work plan that we were comfortable with. The board adopted time frame for that review. Mike's due to hand them the review, I think, by this Friday.
What was the vote?
It was unanimous. So his review will be done on Friday. I haven't seen it. I don't expect to see it before they get it because this is an independent review. I'm hired as a professional, do a work plan. They're the client. I'm not. You're not. So we'll get it when they get it, and it'll say what it says. So I think that that process is well underway. We all, Paul and I and Mike and Bob Seelick met with the Yarmouth Selectmen. They formally requested the services. We're already engaged there. We didn't need the same degree of scoping of a work plan based on what they wanted, so they've just been working, more Bob than Mike, working directly with Bob Houghton before he departs, get some of the finances nailed down and try and develop an analysis that will help inform his successor on where to pick up there. I think that's worked well. I think County Yarmouth is happy, pleased with the offer, pleased with the degree of service that the county provided, and sees it as a substantive benefit. Barnstable's made a request. We haven't gotten that, working that out. Mashpee's made a request for those services. We're engaged, working with Wellfleet, trying to help them nail down and refine the scope for their RFP that went out to get consultant services to do their comprehensive plan that was voted and funded at the Springtown meeting. And a couple other towns have contacted me and said, well, what is this? How do we get in the loop? They haven't, as a board, decided that they wanted to pursue it, so I won't share with you who they are, but a lot of good interest. Both Mike and Bob have, as I suspected they would, shown themselves more than capable of engaging these local officials in a productive conversation. They've been able to turn work around quickly. And I think everybody who's touched the process has seen value in it. So I think it's really gone nicely.
There was one question I have about observation and reporting. How does the public get the information about this? Is there any intent to have any observers from the public?
From which?
On the,
on this?
Yeah.
We haven't nailed that down yet. What I can tell you is that the questioning and discourse will be between the panel and the technical experts. It's not going to be an open mic
I'm not suggesting
session.
that. But
Beyond that, I haven't gone further than that. Certainly the outcome will be a public document, whether it's sort of an observation opportunity for the public in this. There's pros and cons to that.
I'd ask you to vet that out.
We've been kicking it around, and you can make arguments both ways, and there's reasons to do it both ways. And we've not gotten to a conclusion yet, other than the fact that the input and discussion back and forth will be limited to the principles on both sides.
And I agree with that.
Otherwise, it just becomes a food fight.
Just one
Call
other
the term.
Thank you. One other thing on wastewater is that the financing of wastewater infrastructure is certainly not just a Cape Cod issue, it's a statewide issue. So the state legislature acted to create a wastewater financing commission in the last session. The Senate President asked me to be her appointee on that commission. So that has met several times now, broken up into 4 subgroups. I'm on the state and federal resources committee, looking at state and federal resources as well as issues like regionalization under that group, and on an innovative infrastructure subcommittee also. So we were in Boston on Monday on one subcommittee, and Millbury today on another subcommittee. And in many respects, I think the Cape is going to become the poster child for the statewide commission that will make recommendations to the state going forward. So I will keep you updated as we move through that process.
Great.
Good. No, I think that's a good plan.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
When do you want to talk about the litigation? You want to finish your
Yeah,
agenda?
we're
Do
gonna
their
finish.
votes, and then we should be done, and they'll move into executive session. So.
Yep.
Like 5 minutes?
About
Yeah,
5
it
minutes.
won't
Okay.
take very long. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd move the needs action. I don't have any questions on it.
The second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? We in favor?
Yeah, we're all in favor.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to make a report. I went to a housing advocates meeting when I was down in Eastland this morning. And one of the things that had come up is that there's a lot of confusion with regard to comprehensive permits for low or moderate income housing, which is also known as question 2.
On the ballot in November?
Yeah.
And I would like to ask if we could put this on as an agenda item next week, because the Human Service Advisory Committee is meeting on Thursday. And
This Thursday?
no,
Tomorrow?
No, we're meeting a
Oh,
week
the
from-
following
following Thursday. So if we could take this up to decide whether or not we would take a position, and I would sincerely hope that we take a position in favor of voting no on this article, that would give the ability to our Human Service Director as well as our housing specialist to support this. At this point, they are not able to advocate or to present any educational information on this, because they would be in effect setting policy. Since we are the board that could set policy, I'd like to have us discuss it. And part of my concern about voting no, in terms of what I found out this morning, and I believe there's some urgency with it, there are 12,000 12,000 projects across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that would not be grandfathered in if they voted yes on this. They would go away. The financing that are involved, the economic opportunity that would be lost are of great concern over the social, what I call the social justice issue.
Now, are these projects that have already started or just in complete or planned?
They have been, the financing has been developed, the application has been made, and this is in the normal course, they would go forward. But if this is voted, then they're all lost. So I think we have a great concern to provide as much opportunity to support jobs and job growth, and construction certainly is one that needs to be supported. So in any case, I would like to request that we have this as an agenda item. I can give you the reference as to what the question is, and then we could perhaps discuss it and have a vote as to whether or not we see it's useful to support it or not. And if we do support it or not, we can give that advice to the Human Service Advisory Committee, which would include Human Service Director, the Housing Consortium,
and maybe we might want Beth here while we have the discussion.
That'd be fine, yeah. I'm actually attending the Human Service Advisory Committee meeting because we're going to talk about the dental discount program, because that's what we're doing next week.
Right.
Well, we're doing that on Wednesday, and then the following day we'll get roll both of those out.
Yep. So next week on the 22nd, dental discount program, and this is ballot question number 2.
Number two,
right.
And maybe you
it's in
could
regard
ask
to affordable
maybe
housing.
Paul and Beth could come
Paul Wyszynski's
to help
might be
us
useful to come to
to participate
Now,
with us.
Bill, remember you wanted a late start time.
Yeah, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Okay.
Next week?
Yeah, because I'm going to the MMA subcommittee meeting, which is
that's right.
actually talking somewhat about this, but about some other regional programs. Okay, so is that? Do I have a commitment that we'll do that?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
great.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And
that's the 22nd.
and
Okay.
let's see. We had
So
the-
Beth will be here anyways. 'Cause
Right.
she's coming to-
Yeah, I mean, that would, don't you think that would be helpful?
So
Yes,
all of
absolutely.
those,
Yeah.
all of the little plastic display cases, the cards, the posters, those have all been distributed to CVS's, the participating dentists on the Cape. So they're going to have those ahead of time, so people will see them in dental offices as they go in. It's a new program offered by the county, so we'll have more information next week.
That's good. I talked to one of the board members from Duffy last week about, that we were talking about this, a dentist, and he was quite interested and wanted to, if we needed any support on this with the dental community, he would like to know some more about that.
Sure.
So I appreciated the fact that there was some positive response.
Good, yeah, that's excellent. Yeah.
Okay. We had the 9/11, we supported the 9/11 services on Saturday.
Yeah.
I went to 2, one in Harwich, which was done by the fire department and the police department and the Boy Scouts. It was very, very nice. And then I went to one here, which was more formal and I would say more of a solemn occasion. But in any case, that's...
Did you attend that on Saturday? No. And I attended the one in Harwich on Friday. There was a luncheon and prayer. And that was very nice on the 9/11 anniversary.
You probably noticed in your folder that the Board of Selectmen in Sandwich have invited us to the rededication of their town hall
What date is that?
on October 2nd
Right.
at noon. So we should respond if we're all going to be there.
Right.
I'll be there.
Now, are those things we can put on their calendar?
Yeah, sure. I haven't gotten that.
Whether
so I will
we,
take that from you,
those
and I
would be
will
great
put
to
up.
put on. And then
And
you
then
can say, well, I can make that.
The Chamber of Commerce, Canal Region, has invited us to the Scallop Festival, the Bourne Scallop
Yes.
Festival.
Oh, that's
Opening ceremony on Friday, September 24th at 2 p.m. they would like us to join them and be their guests for a scallop or chicken dinner. And please RSVP.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
That was last year.
Did you go last year?
I think I was the
didn't go last year.
designated person, and that's when the bridges were being fixed.
Oh,
Well, let me tell you,
That was the first. That was the beginning of the
Sagamore
bridges,
Bridge was a
and
mess last year, yeah.
I was.
They are working on the
I
Bourne
was there
Bridge, if you
3
noticed.
Well, I'm glad that we're.
They're going to do night work.
It feels like a long time ago. I can't believe a year has gone
Next
by.
week,
The
next
20th,
Monday.
the 20th of September, they'll be working nights,
For a
depending
couple of
upon
weeks.
weather.
And
Yeah,
then,
and you know that
October
Bourne Bridge didn't
12th.
have the same. It didn't have the same impact
No,
as the
it certainly won't.
Sagamore, and but that was a year ago, and that was just the first week that started. So I remember that.
Yeah, they
So-
moved
So I'll
the
be happy to go to that.
Scott
And,
Festival. So why
yeah,
don't you give me that
maybe
piece of
get
paper? I'll
my-
put
And we'll
on
go
the
to that
calendar,
too.
so
Yes.
RSVP, yeah.
That's October, September 20th.
And just, Sheila, so you know, all the letters for the vegetation management
Yes.
went out.
People are asking me, when are we going to? I think we need
and-
to establish. Do we have a date?
That's what I was going to ask you. If you want to give some dates to, I think we should send out one to start, just to
yeah,
here
just
we're
say
going to
this
go,
is
then
the
they can
date
pick.
and see how many.
So if you could give some dates to Kara, she
Okay.
will contact these people.
I will
and
do
let
that
them
this
know.
afternoon and get
And
this
that's
out.
basically
And I
what the
think-
letter said. We'll contact you with a date.
Okay, so we have to do that.
Children's
that
Cove
one
is
out.
having their annual conference tomorrow,
Isn't
and
it?
Friday at the Cape Codder.
Yeah.
Is anybody going?
What time is that at?
I'm not exactly sure when it
Who's the,
starts.
Who represents us on that board?
I do.
You do?
So do we have a time?
Well, I know at 1:30 in the
I just saw it the other
afternoon.
day, and I just, a blank.
I can send you.
If it's at 1:30 in the afternoon, I'll be happy to go. I can go.
Stacy just sent something.
Let me
I thought.
talk to you about it after the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
And also on Monday, we're going to be doing some quarry training.
Oh, that's right.
We have 5 staff people who are going to get quarry training, including myself and Maggie, and we're going to change our quarry process. As you know, the sheriff has done it for most of our departments, and now that he's with the state, he's informed us we can't do that anymore. So we're going to adopt the model that Pat had in Plymouth, basically, where the department managers will be some of the ones who need quarry certifications. They will do them, and as long as everything's okay on the ones they're looking at, they'll be able to move forward with the placements. If there's any doubt, they'll kind of bump it up to a panel of that particular department manager, myself and Maggie, and we'll review it and come to some conclusion. And I just wanted you to know that we received a lovely plaque from the United States Census Service. This is from Kathleen Ludgate, thanking you for all your efforts in the census of 2010. I can't say that I know what we did, but
I think we just promoted it, and we got the word out, and
We
good.
I sent in mine, I know that. So.
We cooperated and participated and did everything that
We
they asked us.
It's a very lovely plaque, and we appreciate that very
We
much.
have more residents in Massachusetts and in the 10th district, so we don't lose it.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
right.
Is there any other? Before we conclude,
You were going to just make a motion. to
Yeah,
go
but
into
before we
executive
do
session.
that-
Yeah, okay.
right.
now just before we do that, I want to mention Diane Thompson.
yes,
Diane was the clerk of the Assembly of Delegates for what, 17 or 18?
20 years. I
20
think,
years.
yeah.
And Diane was a resident of Falmouth, and she passed away last week at what I think is a very young age.
a very young age.
A very young age from cancer. And there was a wake last night, and her funeral services were today. And I think the outpouring of people who came to the wake and went to the funeral, I'm sure, are just a great symbol of the affection that people had for Diane. And it was just amazing to see people from just various walks of life and people who have different jobs on the Cape or don't have any jobs at all, just actually be there and all in some way had their lives touched by Diane. So I think we just want to take a moment to remember her and to thank her for the wonderful service she gave the Assembly and the county.
Yes, and her family is, she had a beautiful son and daughter who, it reflected how young Diane was because they're young.
Right.
And with young families. And I met them yesterday, and I said, one thing that they have to do is really stay together, and in her memory. And I don't think that they needed to be told that, but that they were so important to Diane. And she spoke of them and her grandchildren, and so proud. And Diane was an even clerk. You know, there's 15 different opinions and voices on that assembly, and she was able to manage that and manage all of those just with the facts and be very helpful. I know she was very helpful to me in understanding the process, and she's going to, you know, it's an asset that we cannot replace easily, and a person that will always be remembered. So,
just a little aside. Diane had a dog. I mean, she always had a dog. She loves dogs.
Yeah,
she used to walk them in the woods, her dog in the woods, and we used to, you know, compare notes about our dogs. And we actually had the same vet. And I noticed that her vet came to the wake as well.
Yeah.
I thought that was just so nice,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Diane was incredibly kind to me when I served on the assembly, and was very supportive in the time that I've been a county commissioner. She was a wonderful, wonderful person, because, you know, as you said,
she taught you.
She
helped
she's
you
very,
learn.
very calming, and she will be missed.
And her institutional knowledge, Bill, from day one of the county's new charter and structure, that's a tremendous loss for all of us here in the county.
Yeah.
But she was a good friend, too.
Yes.
She was easy
Absolutely.
to contact
Oh,
over there.
very.
So we're going to miss her.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will.
Yeah, wonderful person.
Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session and by roll call vote, and not to return to open
So
session.
moved.
And you have to state the
Oh, I will-
Oh, for
Madam Chairman.
the purpose of, under Mass General laws, to discuss pending litigation.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Lion's Eye.
Flynn, aye.
Bill Doherty, aye.
That's it. Thank you very much.